अस्सलाम वालेकुम नाज़रीन, सिंध टेलीविजन न्यूज़ पर आए हम जो मेज़बान फयाज़ नासिन असी मौजूद आहियूं हिन वक्त न्यूयॉर्क शहर के अंदर जिते असां न्यूयॉर्क सिटी काउंसिल जो है उन मेंबर जो है फर्नांडो कैब्रेरा साहब उन सां गुफ्तगू कंदासीं जो तमाम गुफ्तगू के अॻिते वधायूं. Hello, Mr. Cabrera.
Thank you.
I welcome you in my show, and we are here to make a documentary about the local government system of the United States and especially about the New York State and New York City. What is the formula of distribution of power between mayor and the city council? How do you work with it?
Well, that's a really good question because we have the branch of the mayor, and then we have the city council. City council, we have 51 mayors, 51 council members, and then we had, of course, one mayor of the city of New York. Those 51 council members were responsible in passing the laws, introducing legislation to make sure.
51? They represent one district.
Is per district, we represent 168,000 people, 168 to 170,000 people. But we represent, all 51 of us are responsible for passing the laws for the entire city. And we also approve the budget of the city of New York. The mayor of the city of New York comes to us and said, I believe that the budget should be this much, and this is how much we should spend in the budget. And then he comes to us. We have hearings on it. As a matter of fact, we're having hearings right now in the city of New York, preliminary hearings to see if this is the way that we should run government. And then we go, we tell them this is the changes that needs to be made, this negotiation. We come back again, we have another set of hearings. And then every June, we pass the budget. This year's budget, it looks like it's going to be $88 billion. $88 billion. That's more than the average state in the United States they're spending in their state budget. More than Delaware, more than Rhode Island, more than Maine. That's how big. This is a huge budget that we have here. But we also have responsible for legislation. So each council member can introduce a piece of legislation, and then it goes to a committee hearing. And once we have a hearing, if the speaker of the city council, which is elected by the council members, we select one speaker, if he or if it's a she says yes, you could bring it up for vote, it comes for the vote for the floor, and then if it passes, then it goes to the mayor. The mayor has 30 days to decide whether he's going to approve or disapprove. If it's disapprove, then it goes back to the city council, and then we need a supermajority to be able to pass it.
If you talk about legislation, if there is any distribution that these subject, on this subject the city council can make the laws, and on these subjects the state council or state assemblies will make the law, and on these subjects the federal government will make the laws. Is there any distribution?
That's a really good question. So at the state level, the charter of the state of New York gives certain powers to the state legislators. We have state senators, we have the governor, and we have assembly members. They pass statewide laws that affect the entire state, and whatever agencies are under them. So, for example, the Board of Education, even though we administer the Board of Education, we hire the chancellor, every time we want to pass a law, really it's up to the state legislators to pass the laws to make changes for the Board of Education.
So education is under the state?
Under the state.
Yeah.
Also, we have some quasi-government agency, like for example, the MTA, which is the trains and the buses. So that's mostly under the state, but they're kind of independent because they didn't want the hands of the politicians on it. Sometimes it gets too political, so they wanted them to be able to become what we call an authority. And same thing is with a subway system. They didn't want it to become too politicized. Same thing.
Autonomous bodies.
It's almost autonomous, almost. But we can still pass laws to make changes when it comes to them.
City council or the state?
That is mostly state, and so So but when it comes to the NYCHA housing that we have 300,000 people live in public type of housing here in the city of New York. We have, the state gave us the right to oversee that. But the state could take it away if they want. Right now, there's talk that instead of the mayor running it, the city council should run the NYCHA projects, because they're not happy the way the mayor is running it. So they say, well, we should change it. And sometimes it gets very political, you know.
So which are the specific duties or the services which are being provided by the New York government?
So the mayor of the city of New York is he's the executive for the city, and he's the one that makes sure every city agency functions well, that the police department functions well, that the police department functions well.
Police is under mayor.
Under the mayor.
Okay.
So he gets to hire the commissioner for them. He gets to hire the commissioner for the fire department, sanitation when it comes to cleaning of the city of New York, which they also take care of the snow removal in the city of New York. And so he's responsible for that. He's responsible for the campaign finance if somebody wants to run for office.
Campaign finance for all the elected representatives, including the senators and the
No.
House representatives, or
No, just for the city
council
for the
members
city
and
council.
mayors.
So the mayor of the city of New York hires commissioner to take care of the campaign finance, which in the city of New York, and I would love for Pakistanians to know that in the city of New York, if you want to run, let's say you were a New Yorker, you want to run, for every dollar that somebody gives you, up to $175, the city will give you $6. So if I raise $16,000, I could get $90-something thousand. So now that
Government is very good.
very good. America is very, very good. New York is very, very good. Because what happens is you got wealthy people who live in the city, and they come and they put $150,000 in a raise, and I only have $16,000. He's going to win every single time. So New Yorkers, we like balance, we like fairness, and we want to give everybody an opportunity to be an elected official. It helped me when I ran. And that's part of the reason that I'm here today.
So these are the police and sanitation work under the mayor.
The mayor.
Any other departments or other services which are being provided by the government?
Sure. The Department of Transportation.
Transportation. But you told me that transportation, especially the metro system,
But that's separate. The metro system is separate from the Department of Transportation. But in the state of New York, you have the State Department of Transportation that take care of the main highways or freeways, like they call it in some places. And the city, they're responsible for all the local roads. So most of the roads that you drove to get here to my office today, they're responsible for them. So they're responsible for repavement, potholes. Here we have winters that create a lot of holes. They're responsible for that. They need to build a street. They're responsible for the lighting. And to provide new lighting into a neighborhood. If we rezone an area and to change the look, they're responsible for that. Then also he's responsible for the Department of Buildings. So the Department of Buildings and HPD, Housing Preservation Department, they make sure that landlords are abiding to the laws of New York and all the policies that we have in laws regarding how the services that they need to provide to the people who live in their buildings. And so also the housing preservation, they have funding for new development. So in the city of New York, we need more affordable housing. It's getting expensive to live in New York. And we don't want the very poor and the very rich. We want lower economic, medium, we want all the sizes in every range. So they'll give a loan, very low interest loan to landlords, to a developer to build new buildings. so you could have almost, very low rent, so people can afford to live there.
Those loans are provided by the city government,
By the city government.
or the federal government, or the local commercial banks.
Well, it's through the Department of Housing Preservation. But they
Specific
work.
budget under it.
Yeah, there's a specific budget for it, but it's in work. There's a working relationship too with local banks as well. So, but it's a very low interest, and the developer comes a winner because he gets a development fee. He might make $1 million. He might make $2 million building. The community wins because now we have permanent affordable housing. So for the rest of the lifespan of that building, they will have affordable housing. So instead of paying, $2,000 for an apartment, they could end up paying $700 for an apartment or $600.
Is there any distribution of taxes? Which taxes are levied by the city government, and which are levied by the state governments, and which are levied by the federal government? Is there? Would you like to let me know?
So
And my viewers let have.
Just like in Europe and other places, we pay a lot of taxes too. So we have the city of New York, and mainly the taxes come from businesses, they come from homeowners, they come from commercial building. So every year the city council decides what percentage is going to come from which group. So it's commercial space, private homeowners, and building owners. So we try to keep it balanced so that nobody carries the overall burden. Then we have a state tax also as well. We have sales tax here that is close to 10%. It's 9 point something right now. And then of course
sales tax is not under the city government.
no, that's on the state. We have like less than 1% tax that we have, but it's very minute that we have
From the sales tax.
from the sales tax, very minute. But the state tax is
You collect that 1% directly, or that is being collected by the federal government or the state?
by the state government.
And they then transfer to you.
And then it's transferred to us. The problem that we have here in the state is that when they collect taxes, we are all over $1 billion don't come back. So there's no equity. And yet, without New York City, you wouldn't have a New York State. So the state government, unfortunately, has taken some of the money that should come back to the city, and it goes to other municipalities throughout the state.
But they don't transfer that.
And they don't transfer it back again, not all of it.
But there is no law that you compel those governments, state governments.
Well, interesting. I'm glad you mentioned that. So, for example, they owe us $500 million for the Board of Education, and we went to court. We won, but we're still waiting for it.
Really?
Yes.
That happens in the US?
Yeah, I know that's shocking. I know this is the land of justice and law and so forth. But yeah, they're out of compliance. They're definitely out of compliance. So
sanitation, especially when we think about the big cities like Karachi in Pakistan or Lahore, the sanitation, we have a big problem of sanitation. How you work? Because I know you have been on the committee on sanitation, and so.
yeah, that's a big deal for us because sanitation is not just about cleaning; it's about health, and it's also about quality of life. I would encourage any city, municipality, and any government to give it a lot of attention, because if my people in our city are getting sick because of sanitation problem, that's going to cost us more money in the health care, and you know how expensive health care could be. And if people are sick, they're not working. If they're not working, that affects productivity. So we make sure that we have cleaning here, like in our streets. Many of our streets get cleaned at least twice a week. So we have a truck that comes by with a cleaner and picks up all the garbage. We separate also recyclable material, so we could recycle that and we actually sell it. The city could make money. doing that. Now I introduced a bill trying to recycle foam. And so that way it will not end up in landfills. We spend $20 million a year by putting this garbage made out of foam into the landfill. If we pass this law, now we will save us $20 million and we'll be able to sell the foam to another company and make $2 million. So we're looking always for a creative way. We also are very mindful, believe it or not, of rats. New York City has a rat problem. And these are not little mice, they're big rats. And we are looking for ways on how we could literally starve to death these rats. And also we make sure that we have, right now, the way we're going after rats, we're using dry ice. And so basically suffocate the rats, because it's a public health big problem. And also we're looking to see how we can have garbage cans the rats cannot get into. Also we're looking into passing a law right now that within an hour after the garbage gets picked up, they have to clean the liquid sometimes around, because the rats come and drink that, and they multiply. These rats here multiply in a month like nothing.
You are talking about the public health. I'm not talking about the public health, but the health department. Does it work under the city government, or it works under the big hospitals and all those, and the doctors? Do they work? Do you make laws to cover those issues, or those are under the state and the federal government?
So you have some state jurisdiction, but in the city, what I could tell you is we got the Health and Hospital Corporation. And the Hospital Corporation mainly covers public hospitals. And so we get them funding to the public hospitals because there are people that cannot afford the hospital stay. They may not have insurance, though we have a federal plan here, but even with that, it might not cover certain
federal
people.
plan means Obamacare you're talking about.
Yeah, Obamacare, or sometimes Medicaid, Medicare, they don't qualify. You might have immigrants as well. So we want to take care of everybody here in New York City.
But how many public hospitals you have in New York?
I think right now, I'm not in that committee, but I think we have 12 in the city. Mm-hmm. And so, like here in the Bronx, we have Bronx Lebanon and North Central Hospital. And so anybody could just walk in if they're in need of health care. And also we have clinics that people could go and get help. But we have a budget gap right now that we need to make
clinics, clinics are run by the city government.
There are few that are run by the city government. And then you have your private ones. You have many private ones, like Montefiore Hospital, Columbia Presbyterian, still some of the best hospitals in the world right here in the city. And so they are, privately owned.
Because I know I was here when there was Obamacare. There was a discussion in the United States that this tiny country like Cuba provides very good health facilities to its citizens as compared to that huge and big country like United States. So that's why I'm interested in what are the public facilities of health are being provided to the citizens, and are those facilities being provided by the city government or the state government or the federal government? I just want to.
Yeah, so we have different layers. Yeah, you have privately owned, and you have city government run hospitals to make sure that whatever the private ones are not catching, we do catch. I know like places like Cuba, who tend to be more of a socialist type of approach. We tend to be more of a capitalist country, but trying to figure out how do we catch everybody. We still have millions of people in the United States who are not insured.
water is also one of the most important thing related to the public health. How do you cover that? This water for household usage, for drinking or for
Okay.
cleaning, for that.
So, for example, water is very important. Look, I had traveled to about 30 countries. And one of the things that is very painful for me to watch is how governments do not take care of the water supply. It baffles me, drives me crazy. And the reason why is because if the water is not good, people are going to get sick. I'm so glad you brought this issue up. I spoke to a gentleman in Peru who was running for office. He was in 4th place. And I told him, I said, listen, talk about water and how you're going to have a good water filtration plant. He won that election because people really care about water. What happens?
How much he paid you for this advice?
Zero. Really? Zero. Zero. A friend of mine asked me to speak to her, and I didn't speak. Zero. But here's what I find in many countries. Okay, what happens is they build a filtration plant, but they don't. They're trying to provide too much water for the amount of people who live in that area, and so the water is not completely clean, and the more people, and then the filters are not clean. Even the water that is sold in the streets, a lot of times they say it's purified, it's not completely purified because they don't change the filtration system. New York City, I know it's going to shock you, but New York City has the best water system in all of the United States. That's why our pizza is so good. Actually, there's New Yorkers that go other places, try to make the same pizza with the same ingredient. It doesn't taste the same because the water here is so good. You could drink the water that comes out of the faucet.
Chicago pizza is also good.
No, ours is the best. And our baseball team is even better. So, but the water here is cleaner than much of the water that you buy in a bottle. The one that comes out of the faucet.
So,
It's that good.
so
Bottled water, do you make laws for the bottled waters companies?
Yeah, that's
You
more
have
of a federal thing.
Okay.
Yeah, in the city we don't deal with that. The only we don't deal with that in the city. But what we do, which most people, even New Yorkers, do not know, is that we buy a lot of the land of the water that comes from upstate to preserve the canals coming down the city. We want to preserve that, so every time there's a piece of land that opens up, New York City buys it to preserve the land around the water, because without water, New York City is done.
So what about the airports and the ports?
Yeah, so we have
Those are being run by the federal government or the state government?
You have a mixture of the two there that runs, but we do it in the state. So, for example, the government of state of New York, if I remember last time, gave $2 billion to renovate LaGuardia Airport, International Airport.
That is run by the city government?
The state and the city, both of them, they overlap each other when it comes to that. It depends
Airport.
at the airport.
What about seaports?
And the seaports, again, with both of them. You got federal, state, and city. For example, for the city, we have a water taxi boat that goes from here to the Bronx, to the city and come back. People don't want to drive, they don't want to take the subway. They just take that water taxi and it gets
That
you
is
over there.
under the city government?
That's under the city government. And they're the ones who get the permits to all of the boats, tourist boats, when you get where all the Pakistani friends come and they want to see New York City, the island. It's a beautiful ride, and some of them have dinner, even lobster that they offer, but they're government by the city. And since we're talking a little bit about tourism here, even the buses, the double-decker buses that we copy from the Europeans, I believe the British were the first ones with those, we also give permits or take away permits if somebody don't run those well, because we want to protect our tourists coming to the city.
Tourism as a whole, not only regarding the transportation of the buses, tourism as a whole, is a city government subject, or the provincial, state government subject, or the federal government?
Yeah, it's a city. As a matter of fact, that's a big deal for us. We make a lot of money of tourism in the city, so we oversee the hotels, hotel permits, so you can have permit. So no, that's really, really important to us, and we want to make sure we also protect the workers that are working in a hotel, so we're very conscious of the laws that we pass to make sure that hotel workers are protected as well.
Okay, let me ask you about the budget making process, because this is one of the important subject when we talk about any government, whether we talk about the city government or we talk about the state or the federal government. How do you guys make the budget?
So the mayor, with he approaches an agency that handles the budget. And comes
Is
out
there
with
a
budget.
specific agency?
Yes, there's a specific agency that is responsible to making sure that we're going to have a balanced budget.
That agency is composed of the elected representatives of the city council,
No.
or the hired officials?
Yeah, it's through the mayor. The mayor hires a commissioner, office of budget management, so they're managing the budget. Every time any of the agencies want more employees, they got to go through that office, and they're the ones who are tight. They tend to try to be conservative and say, hey, we can't spend too much because everybody wants something. And so everything has to go through them and to get approved through them, and ultimately from the mayor when he presents the budget. So then he comes to us and he has a meeting with the council members, and he says, this is what I foresee we're going to do new. This is what we're going to maintain overall. And we ask him questions. 2 hours later, he does a press conference, and then we spend the entire month of March through each agency. I chair the government operation, but we have many council members oversees different agencies, and we go through the budget and say, why are you spending money on this? And why are you not spending money on that? Yesterday I was with the police commissioner. I'm part of the safety committee. And so we were asking the commissioner, are you going to open more precincts? Are you going to fix precincts? Are you going to hire more policemen? You know, crossing guards to make sure the kids cross the street safely. And they're going to hire, they hire 200. How many have not been hired? You said last year you were going to do this. How come it hasn't happened? So we go through that in each of them. And then they go back, and then they say, look, we need to add here or take away here. The council members requested this. And then we have also our finance chair of the city council, as a council member, with the staff that gets together with their finance person, and they begin to negotiate. And then they come back in May, and in May we go through the whole thing all over again. And then in June, we finally shake hands and say we approve this budget. We take a vote, and then July it starts the fiscal year. So that's when the money for the new fiscal year. So technically right now we're doing the budget for 2019.
Okay. So where from that amount comes which you plan for the next year? You get it from your taxes, you get it from your own resources, or you get it from the state government, or you owe it and get it from the federal government?
All of the above. We need money from everywhere. So we get money from the federal government for different projects.
Is there any law or is there any formula that how much the New York City will get from the federal government, how much the Chicago will get, how much the Houston will get, how much you always negotiate with the federal government?
We always negotiate, and the federal government determines how much they want to give to certain areas and for what. And also the way they approach, for example, the new tax law that they just came with, right? They actually penalize states like New York because of the way we give the tax breaks. And so the way they do their approach will affect how much money we're going to get per state. And sometimes it gets very political, unfortunately. But, you know, the federal government recognizes too, they cannot let thriving cities like Los Angeles, like Chicago, like New York, and other cities go in disarray, because 60% of Americans live in a city, and by 2050, 70% will live in major cities. So they have to make sure that we're functioning well.
But end of the day, that is their discrimination. How much they give to New York,
Yes.
how much they give to Los Angeles, how much they
Yes, and then they have an office that deals specifically with city. They have somebody who's in charge, and we send representatives over there. Our mayor goes to the federal government and makes requests. Don't give us more money for this. We need more money for that. Don't cut this, and so forth. So that's why federal elections here are so important. And then the state as well. We
Yes.
get funding from the state.
Again, the same question, because state government will be also dealing with the different cities.
Right.
Some big cities like New York, with some middle kind of cities with middle population, and some very small population cities, populated cities. How they decide that?
Well, the state try to balance it based on how much money came in from the counties, for example, for New York City. But like I mentioned before, that's not always followed, because the governor might have a pet project that he wants to do. For example, in Buffalo, he spent $1 billion over there. They call it the $1 billion in Buffalo, the B&B, I call it. So he decided to put all that money over there. Or he might want to, like he did here in the Bronx, I want to build I want to put an MTA, train to come through here, and put more money into that. And also I forgot to mention that each council member as well, we get money. We get about $5 million to put into schools, park, and we get to decide where it is. Because nobody knows this district like the council member. Because we hear the most, not even state assembly or state senator.
Not even the city council or the mayor.
We not even the mayor, because the mayor is trying to watch over the city, and rightly so. Our job is to make sure that we take care of these few square miles, and we give
$50 million.
No, $5 million
Per year.
per year. We get about 700,000 for discretionary. That means that for programming. So do you want to run an after-school program? If you want to start an art program, a music class, and we get to do that. So.
Thank you very much.
No, thank you. Thank you so much.
And for your very nice explanation about the functions and of this government. Thank you very much.